Most people think their homes are safe, that the people they live with, the ones they trust, would never betray that trust. But for one Reddit user, that sense of security vanished in the most unsettling way. It started with small things, nothing he could put a finger on. Some nights he would wake up to find the kitchen light slightly dimmed, the back door left ajar, or faint footprints in the dust near the front door. His roommate, Jordan, always claimed he had gone out for a late-night snack or to get some air. At first, it seemed harmless. Maybe Jordan was restless, or maybe he just liked midnight walks. But then the strange behavior escalated. Packages that had been delivered and placed safely by the front door began to disappear. Things from the fridge went missing, and one night he noticed the sound of the front door quietly shutting. While he lay in bed, half asleep, he had checked the locks himself. He started setting small traps, leaving a sticky note under the doorknob, placing small bells on drawers, even taping a little string across the hallway. And every time, in the morning, the note was gone. The string trampled, the bells moved. It wasn't just Jordan getting up at night. He was sneaking out, carefully, deliberately, leaving no evidence of his absence. Until one night, the nightmare became clear. Around 2:00 AM, the Reddit user woke to the faint click of the front door opening. Heart pounding, he stayed perfectly still. From his bed, he saw Jordan, moving silently, carrying a backpack. His roommate wasn't just leaving the house, he was leaving with things that weren't his, things that were clearly meant to be private, personal. But the most horrifying part wasn't what he took, it was what Jordan left behind. A small, handwritten note placed on the kitchen counter, in the user's own handwriting, reading, "You'll never know what I do while you sleep." The Reddit user never confronted him directly. The fear, the paranoia, and the sense that he wasn't truly alone in his own home were enough. He moved out soon after, leaving the apartment and the roommate behind. But the memory stayed, a chilling reminder that sometimes the people you trust the most are the ones watching, waiting, and acting while you sleep. The first time it happened, she assumed it was a mistake. A small cardboard box was sitting neatly in front of her apartment door. When she came home from work, her name was printed clearly on the label. Same address, same tracking number. The problem was, she had already reported it stolen. That package had been stolen 3 days earlier. Inside was exactly what she remembered ordering. Nothing missing, nothing damaged. The tape had been cut cleanly and resealed with care. Like someone had taken their time, she told herself it was a delivery error. Maybe a neighbor had grabbed it by accident and returned it anonymously. Then it happened again. Another package went missing while she was at work. Another claim filed. And then, late that night, she opened her door to find it waiting. It was placed squarely in the center of the welcome mat. This time, there was something different. A sticky note was attached to the box. 3 words, written carefully in black ink. "Check the bedroom." She froze in the hallway, listening. The building was quiet. No footsteps, no doors closing, just the faint hum of the lights. Inside the apartment, nothing was out of place. No drawers opened, no windows unlocked, no sign anyone had been inside. She didn't sleep that night. Over the next week, the notes continued. One said, "You forgot the stove last night." Another read, "You locked the door twice before bed." Details no delivery driver could know. Things no stranger should notice. Across the courtyard, there was a man in the opposite building. She had seen him before, quiet, always standing near his window at night, lights off, curtains half drawn. She had never spoken to him, never even seen him leave. When she finally waved, he didn't react. The next package arrived 2 days later. This one hadn't been opened. It was lighter than it should have been. Inside was a printed photo of her apartment. Taken from across the courtyard, her bedroom light was on. She was visible through the window, changing clothes. On the back of the photo was a message. Tomorrow night, 11:42. She called the police. They searched the building across the way. The man's apartment was empty. No furniture, no personal items. Just dozens of printed photographs taped to the walls, each one labeled with dates and times. Photos of her leaving for work. Photos of her asleep. Photos of her holding boxes she hadn't ordered yet. On the kitchen counter sat a final package. Her name was on the label. The delivery date was tomorrow. Inside was a knife, wrapped carefully in brown paper, and beneath it, a note written in the same neat handwriting. This one doesn't get returned. The first time it happened, Lena thought it was an echo. She lived alone in a mid-rise apartment building where sounds traveled strangely. Doors slammed 2 floors down could sound like they came from her own hallway. So when she heard her own voice through the front door one evening, calm and familiar, she assumed she was imagining it. Yeah, just a second. Lena froze in her kitchen. She hadn't said anything. There was a knock at the door again, followed by footsteps shifting in the hallway. Through the peephole, she could see her neighbor from across the hall, an older woman holding a package. And then, Lena heard it again. "Hi, sorry, I was in the shower." It was her voice. Same tone, same slight rasp at the end of sentences. The door opened. From inside her apartment, the neighbor smiled politely, handed the package to someone Lena couldn't see, and walked away. Lena stood there, heart pounding, staring at her locked front door. She didn't open it that night. The next morning, the package was sitting neatly on her kitchen table. After that, it kept happening. Delivery drivers, maintenance workers, even the building manager. Once, Lena would hear the knock, hesitate, and then hear herself answering. Casual, friendly, reassuring, always just out of sight, always convincing enough that whoever was there left without suspicion. Lena started recording herself when she was home, talking out loud, reading, trying to catch the moment. Nothing, but across the courtyard, in the apartment directly facing hers, the quiet man had started keeping his lights on at night. He'd moved in months earlier, never waved, never spoke, just sat by his window, watching. One night, Lena came home late and found her front door unlocked. Inside, everything was normal, except for a handwritten note on the counter. "You sound the same every time." She called the police. They searched the apartment, found nothing, suggested stress, lack of sleep. That night, Lena barricaded herself in her bedroom. At 1:47 a.m., someone knocked. She stayed silent. Then she heard her voice again, soft, tired. "It's okay. I know you're there." The bedroom door creaked. Lena held her breath, staring at the dark gap beneath it. From the hallway, her voice spoke one last sentence. "You always answer for them." In the morning, neighbors reported hearing a woman arguing with herself all night. The quiet man across the courtyard moved out the same day. Inside his empty apartment, police later found hours of recordings, all labeled with Lena's name, all ending the same way, with the sound of a door opening. The police knocked at 214 .m. Not a loud knock, not urgent, just firm, controlled taps that felt deliberate, like they already knew someone was awake on the other side. Evan lived alone in a small apartment complex, the kind where walls were thin and everyone avoided eye contact. He worked late, kept to himself, and rarely spoke to his neighbors, especially the quiet man who lived directly across the courtyard. The man was always there, sitting by his window, lights off, watching the building like he was counting movements. That night, Evan hadn't been doing anything unusual, just eating leftovers and scrolling through his phone when the knock came. He looked through the peephole. 2 uniformed officers stood in the hallway. Relieved, Evan opened the door a few inches. "Can I help you?" One of the officers glanced at a tablet. The other looked directly at Evan. "Evan Miller?" he asked. Evan froze. "Yes, that's me." The officers exchanged a look. "We're sorry to bother you," the first one said, already stepping back. "Wrong apartment." Before Evan could respond, they turned and walked down the hall. He stood there for a long moment, confused. His name wasn't on the door. He hadn't called the police, and no one in the building knew him well enough to give them his full name. The next morning, he checked with building management. No police had been logged as entering the property that night. That's when things started to feel wrong. Over the next few days, Evan noticed small changes. His trash had been moved, his car mirrors adjusted. Once his front door was unlocked when he was sure he'd locked it, and across the courtyard, the man in the window was always there, watching. 3 nights later, the police knocked again, same time, same calm rhythm. Evan didn't open the door this time. "Evan Miller," a voice called through the door. "We just need to ask you a few questions." It wasn't shouted. It wasn't threatening. It sounded rehearsed. Evan whispered through the door, asking what this was about. There was a pause. Then the officer said, "You haven't done it yet." Silence followed. Evan didn't sleep that night. The next evening, he found a folded piece of paper, slid halfway under his door. No handwriting, just printed text. "Tomorrow night, 2:14 .m." He looked across the courtyard. The man's window light was on for the first time. The final knock never came. Instead, sirens filled the street. Police swarmed the building just after 2 .m. They went straight to the apartment across from Evan's. The quiet man was gone. Inside his apartment, officers found notebooks filled with names, floor plans, and schedules. Evan's name was on every page. At the bottom of the last entry was a note. He opens the door the second time. The official report said the police had gone to the wrong apartment during a surveillance operation weeks earlier. But Evan knows better, because to this day, whenever he checks his door at night, there's always a faint scuff mark beneath it, like someone stood there for a long time, waiting for him to open it. The night bus was usually empty by the time it reached the edge of the city. That was why the driver noticed him. Every night at exactly 12:18 .m, the same man boarded at the same stop. He never spoke, never tapped a card. He simply nodded once and walked to the last row, sitting by the window with his hands folded neatly in his lap. At first, it felt routine, comforting even. Then the driver realized something was wrong. the man never got off. Route after route, loop after loop, the bus returned to the depot, cleaned out, sent back onto the road, and somehow the man was always still there. Security footage showed him boarding each night, yet no footage ever captured him leaving. One night, the driver finally spoke. "End of the line," he said, forcing a smile in the rearview mirror. The man looked up slowly. "Not tonight," he replied. His voice was calm, certain. That night, the bus broke down 3 minutes later. The following evening, the man boarded as usual. This time, he left something behind, a folded piece of paper on the seat. The driver didn't open it until the bus was moving again. It read, "Red light. Second intersection, don't stop." The driver laughed it off. At the second intersection, the light turned red. He stopped. A car ran the light at full speed, missing the bus by inches. The next night, there were more notes. "Passenger at row 3 will get off early. Someone is watching from the platform. You'll check the mirror twice before the turn." Each one came true. The man never smiled, never explained. He only watched the road ahead, as if he'd already seen what was coming. On the 7th night, the driver found a final note waiting on the dashboard before the man even boarded. "Tonight, you don't finish the route." The driver called it in. Dispatch said no such passenger existed. No records, no ID, no complaints. That night, the man finally stood up. "This is your stop," he said gently. The bus screeched to a halt, nowhere familiar. No streetlights, no signs, just darkness beyond the windshield. The driver turned to ask what he meant. The back of the bus was empty. Later, police found the bus abandoned at the edge of the city, engine still warm. In the last row, they found a stack of folded notes, all dated weeks in advance, all describing the driver's final route. And the last one read, "He never saw the passenger who took his place."